Hey everyone, this is Elena of The Witch's Box, and I'm here today with another episode of Witch Booktube, and today we're going to be talking about another Ivo Dominguez Jr. book called Casting Sacred Space. This is the beautiful book. The title is The Core of All Magical Work. Can we have a conversation about this book? Let me do the things, and then we're going to get into the book. Ivo Dominguez Jr. is a visionary and a practitioner of a variety of esoteric disciplines. He has been active in Wicca and the pagan community since 1978 and has been teaching since 1982. Ivo was a founding member of Keepers of the Holy Chalice, the first coven of the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, a Wiccan tradition. He currently serves as one of the elders of the Assembly of the Sacred Wheel, a Wiccan syncretic tradition that draws inspiration from astrology, Kabbalah, and Western magical tradition and the folk religions of Europe. His techniques and insights are rooted in a synthesis of traditional metaphysical teachings, modern science, and memories from past lives. He has taught at many gatherings, conferences, and venues across the United States. Ivo is also a professional astrologer who has studied astrology since 1980 and has been offering consultations and readings since 1988. Ivo lives in Delaware, where he's one of the owners of Bell Book and Candle, which you can find at bellbookandcandle.biz. It's Delaware's largest metaphysical shop. You can visit him online at www.ivodominguezjr.com. I'll link to that below. I think I mentioned this last week when I did the review of his other book that we sent with this. These two books, the book that I reviewed last week and this book, went out as part of our book subscription for the month of August. It was an amazing reading month, and then he joined us for the live Witches Book Coven gathering that we have at the end of each month for the book subscribers and those who got the extra book bundles that we had on sale. I think I've mentioned this already in the previous week's video, but we had extra bundles of these, but they sold out in a serious hot minute because his books are amazing. He's an amazing teacher. And as a little like sneaky peeky, we're going to do him again. We're going to do 2 more of his books for our November books. So if you want to be in on that, you need to subscribe now to make sure that you get those books, because we're going to invite him back for even more in-depth conversations about witchcraft. He's an amazing teacher. It was a really juicy, I think it was like an hour and a half where we just got to dive into the books. His overall wisdom. This is a very learned person, and he has contributed greatly to the pagan and witchcraft community. I'm going to read you the table of contents and then we're going to go into it. Oh, also I should say, when he sent them to me, he signed them. It's very sweet. The book table of contents, I'm just going to read them as a list. There's acknowledgements. There's a foreword by T. Thorne Coyle, the introduction, and then the chapters go as follows. Your vision, inner preparations, sensing and making sense of energy, grounding and centering, eminence, transcendence, and magical reality, the quarters, space, time, and elements, the modalities and the quarters, the sword and the staff, the triangle of stillness, the square of obedience, the 3 pillars, the star of sight, the 4 minds, the circle of sound, 4 simple rituals for personal growth, planning for public rituals and large rituals, closing thoughts on sacred space. And for the appendices, because these are also really substantive and filled with information, Appendix A is the chakras, the organs, and the subtle bodies. Appendix B is the Kabbalah, the tree of life. Appendix C is the sword and the staff casting. Appendix D, the triangle of stillness. Appendix E, the square of obedience. Appendix F, the 3 pillars. Appendix G, the star of sight. And Appendix H, the 4 minds. And then there's a list of recommended readings. And again, no index. I think I'm going to start a crusade. Most of the time when you buy a book on witchcraft, regardless of what the book specific topic is, if there's any sort of chapter or section on doing a ritual or performing a ritual, inevitably you're going to be asked to or directed to cast a circle. We talk about casting a circle a lot. Is it always necessary? No, but it's something that comes up. Even we here at the Witch's Box, whenever we send out our Book of Shadow pages along with the Witch's Box, when there's a ritual or spell that box is directing people to do for that month, I'll say very casually, without a whole lot of explanation at all, cast a circle right before you start your work. We certainly have talked about it in our deep dive gatherings. I'm sure that in the IG lives that we do, or I do every Tuesday, that's come up when a witchcraft question is directed in that area, we'll talk about casting a circle and the importance of this. Every time I read a book, and you know, obviously I'm reading a ton of books all the time, when casting a circle is explained, it's given a chapter, which is maybe 5 to 10 pages, and it's the same chapter that we see over and over and over again in some variation. We call in the quarters, we work with the elements, the guardians of the east, the west, the south, the north. Sometimes it'll come with a visual of what that circle casting is. There's invariably a list of why you would do this. You want protection, you want a container for the energy. You're carving out a sacred space to do the sacred work. I haven't seen a lot of conversation about what the dynamic of actually claiming and creating a sacred sovereign space is really about energetically. Yes, there is an element of protection. Yes, there is an element of a filter where if I'm going to create sacred space to do sacred work, this can come in and that cannot. And the circle that you cast is like a filter for those things. Keeps in what you want, keeps out what you don't want. But there is so much dynamism in what it is to truly cast a circle or to create a specific space to do a thing. And I've never seen anything like this book where not only does he talk about a circle, but he talks about the triangle. He talks about different types of spaces and what they would be for. He talks about the energetic dynamic of why and what and who and when to do certain things at a certain time. This is such a gorgeous, in-depth exploration of all the reasons why you would do it, how you would do it, and when you would do which type of sacred space casting, that I read it probably late spring of this year. There have been, in the last couple of years of all of this reading, a handful of books that I felt like I gotta go back and I gotta read this again at least 2 or 3 more times, because the layers of information and my ability to absorb it all in one shot, there's no way, because there was just so much there. This is one of those books that I'm adding to that pile because, again, I read it early this year. Looking back on all my notes and looking back at all my underlinings, it's like I didn't quite absorb that, but that was really significant and important. There is so much information here that it's definitely a book that you would read over several times. We have taken for granted what we're doing when we cast a circle, and it's not enough to just think of it as I'm setting a container for protection. It's what we do. It's something that we do for rote. This enlivens the entire act as its own ritual in a way that, again, I have not seen anyone else do. His expertise, his years upon years upon years of practice of practice and learning and teaching shows, because it takes the creating of space to a level that I guarantee you have never experienced before in your life. I'm not exaggerating. I'm really in love with this man and his work. Goodness, it gives you a perspective, again, that you really need, because it also, in my personal opinion, deepens the understanding of the energies at play when you do ritual work, when you do sacred work in a very particular way. It enlivens what we're doing in a really gorgeous way. I don't know how else to say it. Again, this is a book, yes, for someone who is more advanced, intermediate, advanced, but I would say that if you are new and you are not intimidated by the overwhelm of information, this is a book for you as well, because you're going to read it and from the get-go, you're going to understand something that is very powerful and very beneficial to your personal work on a level that you wouldn't have if you waited years and years of reading through beginnerish books. Just dive into the real thing. That's not to say that what is out there isn't real, but it doesn't go the distance that this book goes. You're going to have an understanding not just about creating sacred space, but you're going to have a deep understanding of all of the energetic streams at play when we do this kind of work. And it's going to also prepare you to take very specific considerations before you do personal work and before you do magical work. Because it's not just let me set up my altar, let me make sure that I have my intention. You are energetically preparing to enter into a different place and time. Oh my God. Oh my God. So listen, order this book and get it right now. Get it. And I would probably also recommend, if you can afford it, to get the hard copy and get the audio. I have the audio, but I hadn't listened to it. And this is one of the rarer books. I'm seeing this more and more. I shouldn't be saying this anymore because I think 2 years ago when I started doing this, it was like, oh my God, why aren't more of these books in Audible form? But more and more now we're seeing them come out, which I'm so grateful for. If you can afford it, buy both versions, because I feel like this is definitely a book that you're going to have to go through a couple of times. There's exercises and things to do so that you can experience this work for yourself. But it is so multi-layered. There's so much here to cover and to learn and to really experience that, I mean, I'm feeling it for myself. I read it. I have to read it again, but I also think I just want to be able to sit back, hear it, so that I have a different layered experience of it, right? Because we receive information differently when we hear it as opposed to reading. Both together, I think, would help download it further. So I recommend both. I'm not going to lie. Recommend both. This is like a 5+++++. He did a beautiful job. The writing, even though there's a lot of information here, a lot of it is going to be very new. So you're going to have to really work at conceptualizing it, even though it is advanced work and it's complex in a lot of ways. His writing is really clear. It flows really well and it's accessible. It makes it easy to absorb it. It makes it easy to go back and reread it so that you can really feel what's going on. Before I end this video, I want to say a couple of things. You've heard me talk about casting the circle, certainly not to this level and not to this degree at all, but that casting a circle and sitting within that sacred space that you've created is not just an act of reclaiming your agency and your sovereignty as a witch, but it's also a really intensified space in which to play with one or two specific energy streams at a time to familiarize yourself with particular energy streams. It could be planetary, it could be botanical, it could be a deity, it could be an element. We talked about this in various different places here at the Witch's Box, where I say, work with one element at a time, cast a circle with just one element. See the difference between a cast circle with fire as opposed to a cast circle with water. What do you feel is much more on the surface for you when you do it one way as opposed to the other? All of these are really great ways to experiment, to understand yourself better when you're working with particular energies, and also to familiarize yourself with these different energies, right? I think that the cast circle specifically as a simple modality is a really great, easy, non-technical way of experimenting with getting stronger and more intuitive around feeling the energies that we're working with and the energies that you're casting yourself and how they affect you and how they affect the environment around you. It is a really foundational, basic skill that it has nothing basic about it, even though we talk about it like as if it's basic. And if you're new, if you are not new, but you're wanting to advance in your capacity to cast, to work with energy, to work with the unseen, to work your magic, to work ritual that's transformative, this is a skill that is, I think, going to really serve you for the rest of your witchcraft path. And it is a skill that, and a technology that you can use in a variety of ways, diversely, in a way that will serve you in many, many different ways. Don't think about this as it's a book on casting circle. It's not. It's so much more than that. And then some. And I think that we all need to have this book. Every single witch has to have this book and really sink into it. I mean, look, welcome to the Ivo Dominguez Jr. fan club. I'm here to say, there it is. It's an important book. It's a great book. I'm so excited to go into the other two books that we've chosen. So there's that. I hope that you have a wonderful week. Please subscribe, share the video, and listen, if you've read this, if you were part of that conversation that day when we had that live, go ahead and comment down below and let us know what your thoughts are, how you're doing now after all that reading, and we'll go from there. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.